So there's this one team that is taking over the entire league by storm. Yes, it's the OKC Thunder. I will have a separate video on them, but I'm mainly talking about the Detroit Pistons. As I am making this video, the Detroit Pistons are 15-2 on the year, and they have won 13 in a row with a win against the Indiana Pacers last night. And let me tell you, man, this team is playing different, like even more different than they did in 2024-25, which is a more improved year from what they had 2 years ago when they had head coach Monty Williams, who 2 years prior to him being hired by Detroit, he was a coach of the year. And then obviously they won that infamous 28-game losing streak. And now, 2 years later, they are the best team in the East, and it does not look like they are slowing down anytime soon. So their offensive rating, I'm looking at this from NBA.com. Their offensive rating is number 7 at 117.3. Defensive rating, they are number 3, only allowing 110 points a game. And then their overall net rating is number 4 at 6.9. Obviously, the Oklahoma City Thunder lead the defensive rating and their overall net rating, but the Houston Rockets are actually number 1 in offensive rating, which is kind of interesting. I would have thought would have been OKC, but again, I will talk about OKC in another video. But let me tell you, this team is playing lights out basketball. Cade Cunningham, and I am saying this as someone who has been a Cade Cunningham fan, and to some of y'all, a Cade Cunningham glazer. This dude is making a case for MVP right now. Cade is averaging 27 a game, 6 rebounds, and 9 assists a game. So almost 27 and 10. His running mate, Jalen Duren, could be a most improved player candidate as of right now. If the season were over right now, Jalen Duren could be MIP, averaging 20 points and 11.5 rebounds a game. Now, I am aware Cade is not shooting efficiently, quote unquote. He's only shooting 44% from the field overall and 28% from 3 off of like 2 to 6 attempts a game, which is generally unacceptable, but because of the fact his numbers are translating into wins. Same with Jalen Duren, same with a guy like Tobias Harris, who's averaging 14 on the year. And then you have a guy like Duncan Robinson, who I will get to in a minute. Because of Cade's numbers, I think the percentages don't matter now. I'd rather have him go cold to begin the year and then all of a sudden get on a heater, especially when the playoffs arrive, then all of a sudden start the season just crazy hot, and then all of a sudden he plateaus throughout the year, and then all of a sudden for the rest of the year he becomes this inconsistent up and down player who one game he'll have like 10 made threes, and then the next game he'll go like 0 of 10, if you know what I mean. I'd rather have Cade go cold now and then start to heat up later. Because, again, we've seen this with a team like the Golden State Warriors last year. They start off the season almost the same record as Detroit. I think they started off the season last year 12-3. Everyone was raving about how they're contenders. And all of a sudden, Steph Curry's greatness is not enough to lead them to wins. And the Warriors start to plateau. And then they start to go on a very bad tailspin until the trade deadline when they got Jimmy Butler. And then all of a sudden, they start heating up. And now the Warriors are just this inconsistent team now. I do not see that happening with Detroit. Again, I'd rather have Cade go in this slump now, and then after All-Star break, I guarantee you, when you get him a couple more pieces after the deadline, again, I've said this so many times when talking about the Pistons, if you can get a guy like Klay Thompson or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, KCP, to be the shooter next to Duncan Robinson, because here's the thing, we're seeing Duncan Robinson go back to that role that he originally had in Miami. You know what I'm saying? Like, he had this role next to Jimmy, next to Gabe Vincent, for example, next to Goran Dragic, next to Bam Adebayo, next to Tyler Hero, especially in that finals run. We are seeing Duncan go back to that role. After that finals run in 2020, in the bubble, Duncan really never had a consistent enough role with Miami. I think over time he started to fizzle out, especially when Jimmy left the team. And Cade's play style and JB Bickerstaff's system complements a guy like Duncan Robinson. Why do I say that? Because we saw what happened with Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. last year. You added those two guys, all of a sudden, Cade's playmaking is unlocking another level out of those two guys. And Malik Beasley had arguably the best season of his career playing next to Cade. I think with someone like Klay, it will be the same thing. Why? Because let's put this into some context, y'all. Klay left the Golden State Warriors for a reason. He felt like he did his time there. He's grateful for what Steph and Draymond did for his career. Clay set records and all that other stuff, but he felt like his time was up there, and he felt like the Warriors were going to move in a different direction, and that was made clear when Steve Kerr benched him for Brandon Podziemski. He went to the Mavericks after what he saw with Luka and Kyrie making the finals with, ironically, Tim Hardaway Jr., who I just mentioned. And then you had guys like Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, and then you added guys like Najee Marshall and then Quentin Grimes as well. Clay left the Warriors for the Mavs because he felt like he could win there, especially with guys like Luka and Kyrie. You put him on the Detroit Pistons, it could be the same thing, especially with Cade's play style. Now, I'm not saying Cade is Luka. Luka and Cade are totally different players. I get that. But when you put a guy that could distribute the ball like Cade can, and then you have guys like, let's say, Jaden Ivey, who I hope they don't trade. If they do make a trade for Clay or KCP, who I'll also get into, I hope they do not have to sacrifice Jaden Ivey, even though we have seen guys of like Dennis Jenkins balling out of his mind, because I ain't heard of Dennis Jenkins until, I watched one of the highlights. I'm just like, yo, this guy's good. But anyways, you put him in that system, I think he will be the same type of player that a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr. was for that team. Because right now, yes, Clay at this point is as streaky as Tim Hardaway Jr. One game, Clay will have 7 threes. The next game, he'll go like 2 of 10 or whatever. That's just who Clay is at this juncture of his career. But I think you also have to take this into consideration. The Dallas Mavericks are not interested in winning right now. I think if you put Clay on the Pistons, a team that is motivated to win, I think Clay will bring that championship knowledge he has had with Golden State to a young Detroit team that I feel like needs it, and I think it will put Detroit at the next level. Same with a guy like KCP. KCP has won a ring with the Lakers next to LeBron James and Anthony Davis. He won a ring a couple years ago with Denver next to Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. Now, some of y'all may be asking, especially Pistons fans, yo, X, why would they want to trade for KCP and Clay? They have a good roster. You're blowing up team chemistry. You're trying to start over from scratch and all that. And I get that. And I don't blame y'all for thinking that. But for me, I just feel like it's adding more to what is already a really good Detroit team. I feel like adding KCP or adding Clay, or perhaps both in that sense, I feel like they both add a lot to a really good Pistons team. I don't think you're taking away anything from what Detroit is doing, especially since the focal points, Cade, Asar Thompson, who I forgot to mention, Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, potentially will all still be there. And then you just have the auxiliary players like Ron Holland II as well. So for me, I don't think you're taking away much if you are going to get those guys. Now, could it be like some money issues involved? Sure. I don't think those are the end-all be-alls. I feel like if you can flip a guy like Tobias Harris for someone like PJ Washington, who is also an athletic forward, he can knock down timely threes, especially, again, what did we see in the playoffs next to Luka and Kyrie? PJ Washington came up clutch in that OKC series. He came up clutch in the series against Minnesota. I believe he could be that same player next to Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren as well. He can defend. He's essentially a younger version of Tobias Harris, and I think he could score the same amount of points. So you're essentially getting the same player, but who's on the younger side, and I believe he's better than Tobias at this juncture of his career. Now, don't come after me, Pistons fans. I know some of y'all are ready to lay the hammer on me and say that, yo, why would they trade this? I am just saying that these are trades that I believe will unlock Detroit even more. You think Detroit is good right now? Wait until they make a couple more moves at the deadline that I will for sure say they will get better with those trades. And even if, let's say, they do trade Tobias Harris for someone like Clay or KCP, you can make Asar Thompson the full-time power forward, and we've seen him defend fours in the past, especially these past playoffs, defending guys like, again, he's defended Jalen Brunson. He's defended OG Anunoby. There are times where he's defended Karl Towns as well, even though that was Tobias's main assignment. So Asar Thompson can be the full-time four, and I personally would not have a problem with that. Now, enough about that. Detroit is playing like a lights-out basketball team. They're only going to get better, and I do not see them slowing down anytime soon. Now, are they championship contenders as of right now? Probably not, because I've seen this type of stuff before. I saw it last year with Cleveland. I saw it a few years ago with the Phoenix Suns when they won 64-18 in 2022, only to get knocked down in the second round, and all that other stuff. I saw it with the 2021 Jazz. But I do believe that they are here and they are serious about winning. And let me get to JB Bickerstaff. I discussed it in my offseason video talking about Detroit. Bickerstaff is a really good coach. I loved how he has transformed this Pistons franchise, and he's unlocking Cade Cunningham's potential. Whereas coaches like Dwayne Casey and Monty Williams, I didn't feel like they utilized Cade to the best of their abilities. I felt like they were trying to utilize him as players they've coached in the past. I think with Dwayne Casey, he tried to coach Cade Cunningham like he's DeMar DeRozan. And then Monty Williams, I thought he was trying to coach Cade Cunningham like he was Devin Booker, which obviously that's not who Cade is. I mean, Cade is a good mid-range shooter, just like Book and DeMar, but they are all different players. Cade wasn't really the playmaker we see now under Bicky. He wasn't that playmaker under Monty Williams or Dwayne Casey. And then it's the same thing with Jaden Ivey. I talk about J.I. Jaden Ivey was being utilized like he was Mikal Bridges under Monty Williams. Again, Ivey is a playmaking slasher. And I feel like JB Bickerstaff unlocked Ivey last year until he got hurt. I think when you see Ivey ramp up and he inserts himself back into the starting lineup, even though there is a chance he could come off the bench and he could be the sixth man, which wouldn't be a bad idea for a guy within his role. I think he brings a lot to the second unit outside of Karis LeVert. And Bickerstaff's offensive system, I don't want to compare them to OKC and the 2015-16 Warriors, or aka the Prime Warriors with Steph and Clay, but they move the ball at such a fluid rate. There's no standing around. There's no isolation plays. And I do feel like Cade is getting good looks from three. He's just not knocking them down. Again, I can attribute that, I should say, to a slump. But again, with Bickerstaff's ball movement and system, I don't think percentages like that matter. And I feel like he's utilizing Jalen Duren like he's Kevin Garnett, right? Or a guy like Bam Adebayo, which I think he can be as good as Bam, if not better. You know what I'm saying? And we're seeing it in real time. So overall, man, I am very, very excited for the Detroit Pistons, and I like watching them play. They are such a fun team to watch, and I personally do not think they're a fluke. Maybe I could get proven wrong, but again, with the trades that I mentioned with guys like Clay, KCP, PJ, and I mentioned Andrew Wiggins in my offseason video too, I feel like these are trades that add to Detroit, not taking away their chemistry. Especially since, these guys probably have played with each other before. Clay and PJ play with each other in Dallas right now. Wiggs and Clay played with each other on Golden State and all that other stuff. And obviously KCP, he knows Detroit. He's played there for the first half of his career. The first 4 years of his career, I should say, not the first half. But regardless, Detroit is playing like a well-oiled machine. Bickerstaff, I think he might be coach of the year when it's all said and done for the season. Because again, I do not see this team slowing down. And it's so insane, bro, and it's crazy to think about them being the first seed, because in a world where we're talking about the New York Knicks making out the East, the Cleveland Cavaliers making out the East, the Philadelphia 76ers, the Milwaukee Bucks, no one predicted, and the Orlando Magic, because they got Desmond Bane from the Grizzlies, no one imagined that the Detroit Pistons, of all teams, would be the number one seed. I always thought they would build off of what they had last year. I didn't think they'd be number one seeded good. This is their first time being the number one seed in the East since 2007. Now, yes, you can attribute that to Jason Tatum and Tyrese Halliburton being out. Because if Tatum and Hallie are playing right now, it would be the Celtics as the number one seed and potentially the Indiana Pacers at number two, with Detroit, New York, Cleveland, Philly, and Milwaukee all following suit. But right now, the Pistons are exceeding expectations. And again, I do not want to count this team out in the playoffs, because they could go out and they could break a lot of hearts. And they could be that team that Indiana was last year. No one gave Indiana a chance to make it out of the East. And here they were, being a game away, a Tyrese Halliburton away from potentially upsetting OKC. Now, I think OKC would have won that finals regardless. But either way, I'm seeing a serious Detroit team that I think is only going to get better. And they play very fast. They're a really good defensive team. And again, if they make trades for at least 1 to 2 more pieces, there's no telling what their ceiling could be. I think they could be the ones in the NBA Finals representing the East when it's all said and done. Now, I'm still pulling from my man Ice Trae and the Hawks. That dream is not dead yet, unless, obviously, if Atlanta trades him. But regardless, man, if I were a Pistons fan, I would be very excited to see where this team could go right now because, yeah, it's a red hot start. And could there be a chance that they slow down? Possibly. But with Cade's leadership and JB Bickerstaff's leadership, I think they are going to keep the ball rolling. And I think it's only going to continue from here. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think that it's just another one-seed team that just got hot at a lucky time? They've been catching lucky breaks or whatever the heck you may think. Do you guys believe in Cade Cunningham being an MVP? Do you guys believe in JB Bickerstaff's offense? What are your overall thoughts about the Pistons? And if you were to make a trade, what type of players would you trade for if you were Detroit to add on to what is already a really good Detroit team? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That's the end of this video. I'm X. Deuces.